Okay. There is a flyer on the table over there that we got from the library. We have an author who is doing a reading here at the library, and it looks like it's very interesting. And so I told Amanda we would hand these out.
And she's a Roseman resident.
Yeah, this gal is a Roseman resident. So please pick one of these up before you leave. It looks like it would be an interesting time to hear the author talk about her book. Also, for our Christmas dinner meeting, trying to coordinate with a restaurant has been extremely challenging, but we do have now Thursday, December 18th, because the casino can't accommodate us. So put it on your calendar. It'll be out in our newsletters, but put on your calendar. Thursday, the 18th of December is going to be our Christmas dinner meeting. And I don't have any other announcements. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time because, you know, before we have to be out of here with all the chairs put away by 7 o'clock. And so I want to give people lots of time to ask questions. So Siobhan, may I turn this over to you?
Yeah, I'd like to make just a couple of quick announcements. For our November meeting, we are going to have the woman who was very involved in setting up the Manzanar Museum, and she is actually going to take us through what we would call an armchair tour of it. And she is also willing to facilitate us going up there to Manzanar. And Armando will also be talking about giving us another field trip. So we've got field trips coming up the wazoo here. Without any further delay, I'm going to introduce Armando to you. And his name, he does have a last name, Armando Solis. He was born and raised in Bakersfield. He worked and experienced, oh goodness gracious, let me get on my old lady.
You want me to read that?
Yeah, do you have yours on here?
Yes, always.
He was came of age during the 60s and 70s and saw the turmoil that was going on, and he graduated from high school. And he joined the U.S. Air Force and became a military working dog handler, a security police canine operator. And during his 4 years, he was assigned to Louisiana, Guam, Panama Canal Zone, and finally to Vandenberg Air Force Base. He is proud to be called a Cold War warrior and a Vietnam veteran. After his military service, he became a paramedic and later a California Highway Patrol officer. He is very involved in the Honor Flight of Kern County, the Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, and other local veterans groups. And he still has time for some extra hobbies like photography, train travel, vintage map collecting, watching classic movies, NASCAR, and is an avid disaster preparedness specialist. So he has got a ton of interest. We believe very, very firmly in supporting anybody that is doing any of these great and wonderful things. And he is selling his book, We Seek No Wider War, an introduction to our involvement in the Vietnam War, for $20. And he donates a percentage of that to Honor Flight. And Honor Flight also has their t-shirts, hats, and other paraphernalia back there. And they also will take just a straight donation. And while I'm pitching everybody, we have the Honor Flight as to where you can go online to make a donation, the Portrait of a Warrior Gallery to make a donation, And these are all donation-driven programs. So it's a great opportunity if you're looking for a place to support something. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass this off to Armando.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sir.
Turn that mic on, will you?
This one.
All right. We set? Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here this evening. Yes, my name's Armando Solis. I'm going to talk about several subjects. Number one, Honor Flight, the history of Honor Flight, how it became a nationwide network and how we became involved in it in Kern County. After that, I'm going to talk about how Honor Flight affects veterans and why we need to get veterans on there. Then I'm going to talk about Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, another one of my side jobs, if you will. And then if we have time, we're going to talk about the book and why I wrote the book and what it entails. And yes, we will have time for questions if you would like. Everybody has an idea here of what Honor Flight is that correct? Anybody have no idea what Honor Flight is? All right. Honor Flight started, it's a nationwide organization. It started in Springfield, Ohio in 2005 by a physician's assistant that we're going to meet here very shortly. And at the same time, another gentleman in North Carolina was doing the same thing. They were taking veterans in private planes to Washington, D.C. They were taking World War II veterans because the World War II memorial had just been completed in 2004. Now think about it. That's about 59 years after the war ended that they finally got that memorial built. You ready to?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to watch this real quick.
Honor Flight Network is a collection of volunteers all over the country in 138 cities and 44 states that has made it their purpose to get as many World War II, Korean, and Vietnam veterans out here to see their memorial before it's too late.
As a network, as of this year, we have flown, I think safely, conservatively, over 120,000, 130,000 veterans.
I started Honor Flight back in 2005, about 6 months after the World War II Memorial had been dedicated and opened up to the public. At that time, I had about 300 World War II veteran patients at a VA clinic in Springfield, Ohio, and I was giving them all a high five. I said, "Congratulations, you have a memorial." I said, "What do you think about that?" And every one of them felt that it was great, it was overdue, and that they wished that their friends would have lived long enough to see it. And I said, "Well, what about you? Are you going to go see it?" And every one of them felt that sooner or later a son or a daughter or their VFW post would facilitate a trip like that. But because they're my patients, and you see them at 3 months and then 6-month follow-up visit, sadly not one of them had been to the memorial. And worse yet, reality had set in. They were never going to see their memorial. So in addition to being a physician assistant and a private pilot, I just started recruiting other pilots. And we were bringing them out 2 at a time in 6 aircraft. That was our first flight.
And I told my wife, I said, I think I'll try to take every World War II veteran in Henderson County, our county, up to see the memorial. And have to sit down and really figure out how to do it. So we talked about it and decided the best way to do it is charter. And I'd heard about a guy named Earl Morse. I'd read an article on him in a Charleston, South Carolina paper. And he was flying 2 veterans at a time in private planes. And I called Earl, I tracked him down and called him and told him what I wanted to do.
Jeff Miller is a force of nature. He saw what we were doing, and he said, "How can we make that happen in North Carolina?" And I said, "Well, what you do is you find some private pilots or maybe a regular scheduled flight that goes into Washington, D.C. He said, "That's not going to work, Earl."
He said I should try and find a bunch of pilots, and I told him I didn't want to do it that way, that I wanted to charter an entire jet.
We don't have scheduled flights to Washington, D.C. We're going to charter an entire jet. And I said, "How much is that going to cost?" And he said, "It's going to cost $70,000. Well, we'd been at it for a year. We'd only raised $30,000. And I said, "Good luck, Jeff. I'll help out in any way that I can.
Well, we didn't have any direct flights out of my little area of the state. So I told him I really want to do it with charter. And he said, well, good luck and keep me posted.
We'd really appreciate it if you would, not call yourselves Honor Flight. If you would call it something else, we'd appreciate it, because if this fails, it might give our fledgling organization a bad name. I was so wrong. Jeff, being as dynamic as he is, and the cause being as timely as it is, was able to engender the public there in North Carolina, and he wrote the book on how to do a charter flight operation. And most veterans that come to Washington, D.C. today are usually brought on by charter flight operations, which Jeff Miller started.
One of the programs that I'm most proud of within our organization is the TLC program, and that's Their Last Chance. And it's terminally ill veterans diagnosed with a terminal disease, a year or less to live. And we take them from all over the country, all era, Vietnam, Korea. The World War II veterans are funny. They say they're all terminally ill, but we always work with the World War II guys first anyway.
It's always a measure of how you've helped other people. And I believe that success is measured by not only the number of people that you can help, but also the degree to which you help them. Like a lot of the veterans that come here on a trip like this, they had given up all hope of ever seeing their memorial. And to be able to make that happen for them, it's life-changing. So I believe that helping other people and focusing on doing that, that's how success is measured.
What I found out, more than just that these veterans are so wonderful to spend a day with, was there were so many people out there that cared. There's so many people stepped up to help that happen. And the more I thought about it, and the more I talked to the veterans and things, and I started looking back, my greatest lesson is there's always hope. No matter where you get, and I've hit the wall a couple of times since then. What they showed me, they dealt with, and what I learned through interaction with them, that there's really always hope. There's no reason to quit. And maybe that sounds corny or something, but it really is. I don't give up easy. I'm pretty stubborn, and I do believe that what we do, and as a byproduct of that, is that we give people an opportunity to do something good, and there's usually a lot of people out there that'll jump right in.
There is something innate in all of us that I believe brings us true joy when we can make that kind of a change in somebody's life. And at Honor Flight, we do it on a grand scale, and we do it at a level that I just marvel at. I am amazed at how many people that we touch across this nation, and that brings us real joy and happiness.
We now have 128 hubs nationwide in 44 states, and so far the network wide, they have taken 317,000 veterans to Washington, D.C., and we take them at no cost to the veteran. I'm going to refer to my notes, and I'll tell you why, because I forgot to take my Prevagen this morning, so I have to refer back to my notes, and then sometimes my brain has like sundowners and it starts to wander. So excuse me if I look at my notes a little bit. Here in California, we have 7 hubs all over the state. San Diego, Southland, which covers LA and Orange County. Central Coast, which is in San Luis Obispo. The Bay Area covers San Francisco and the Peninsula. North Bay in Santa Rosa. Fresno has the Central Valley, and then Kern County. Do you have Lily's picture? There's also a program he didn't mention that it's called the Lone Eagle Project. If there's an area in the country that isn't served by a hub, they will bring in a private airplane and get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 veterans on that. if they are not accessible to a major hub like a big city. And that's a spectacular program. I think we've only had a handful of veterans up in the northern California area do that. Lily started our honor flight when she saw a news article on the LA News about this honor flight program. Her father had served in World War II, and she says, I want to get my dad on that. But it was such a hassle to do it, to gather up the veterans, get them on a bus, take them to Los Angeles International Airport, and then bring them back. So she said, forget that, let's do it right out of Bakersfield. So our first flight in May of 2008, we took 17 World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. And that's basically how it started. On United Airlines, we took a regular flight. You had to go into Denver and then on to Baltimore. Since then, we have grown. We just got back from Flight 52. And so far, we've taken about 3,000 Kern County veterans. World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And that's an incredible amount of people. We do more flights than the majority of hubs that are our size, cities that are our size. We take 2 flights a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. We try and take about 100 veterans on each flight. But along with those veterans, we take guardians. How many of you have been guardians? Diane, Kay, you. So we've got guardians here. How many of you have been on the flight? 1, 2, you've been on it. All right. So we'll take guardians, and the guardians are assigned a veteran or 2. We'll take news media with us. We'll take medics. How many of you been medics? Okay, Kay keeps raising her hand. She was my medic. She was our flight medic on my flight. And she's also served as a guardian 3 other times, including the guardian for, how many? 4 female veterans. And that was several years ago. So she's an asset to Honor Flight. And here's the sad part. There's only 66,000 World War II veterans left, and we have to get those on before they all pass away. In Korea, during that Korean War, there was 5.7 million men and women that served during that era. 1.8 million served in Korea. Vietnam, there was 8.7 million men and women that served in the military during that period, 1964 to 1975. Out of that, 2.7 million served in country, in Vietnam. So we have a long ways to go. If we've only taken 300,000 people, 300,000 veterans, we've got a long ways to go. The other veterans that we'd also take is any, and I think they mentioned that they're any critically ill, terminally ill veteran. And it doesn't matter whether you've seen combat or you were stationed in Iceland. You are a veteran. You sign that paper to Uncle Sam, payable in full, whenever Uncle Sam wanted it. It wasn't your fault that they didn't send you to a combat zone. Uncle Sam wanted me in Greenland. He wanted me in Panama Canal. You still have a right to go on that flight. Now, just so there's no confusion about what Honor Flight is, I'm going to tell you what it's not. It is not a government-based program. We get no federal funding. We are not part of the Veterans Administration. They have nothing to do with us other than say, if they run into veterans, have you been on Honor Flight yet? We are not motivated by who's in the White House or who's not in the White House. We are not motivated by politics. We take the veterans to honor the veterans. And then the biggest one, we are not a party bus of baby boomers. We're an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization. We don't get any money for it, except to take those veterans. Nobody on Honor Flight anywhere gets paid. Lely Marsh doesn't get paid. I don't get paid. Nobody gets paid. We're all volunteers, and we're here to do a calling to get veterans on that Honor Flight. And it's done by the generosity of the public. Ralph Bailey, one of our talk show hosts, just put out a presentation. He was able to raise $50,000. Pretty close to that this last week to get our veterans. We won't do bake sales or car washes. We'll go out and do things like this. We'll solicit for funds. We do have a fundraising committee that goes out and takes care of that. Let me talk about the World War II veterans. I think you've probably all seen news articles where they're going through New York and ticker tape parades, and yes, they won World War II, hooray for them. It took those guys and gals over 2 years to come back to the United States. There were so many of them. They weren't greeted with ticker tape parades. They were just greeted by saying, good luck trying to find a job. And a lot of them were destitute in World War II. They didn't get that homecoming that some other people have gotten. Same with the Korean War. That's known as the Forgotten War. Nobody knew about them, and they came home piecemeal. They didn't care. People didn't care about them. And the Vietnam veterans. How many did I say? 8.7 million that served during the Vietnam War. That's who we do it for. Now, to understand what Honor Flight is, I want you to understand what it does for the veteran. And in order for me to do that, I want to take you back into Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. It says here, pause for laughter. Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. Hello, you guys remember him? Okay, thank you.
That's way back.
That's way back. Okay, I'm sorry. Go back to the 60s and the 70s. The Vietnam War was tearing our country apart. That was just one of the things that was tearing us apart. There was a lot of other issues going on. But with the Vietnam War, it was like the commies against the Americans, the blue-collar workers against the hard hats, the hawks against the doves. And people were really mad and upset and distrustful of the government. And who'd they take it out on? Every person, every man, woman in military service. When we got back, they were treated with disrespect, unappreciated, unloved. We were called baby killers, murderers. We had blood thrown on us. There was a point in time when we could not even join the Veterans of Foreign War organizations because they were telling the Vietnam veterans, you weren't in a real war. So those guys never joined. So we lived with that stigma. We lived with that for many years. A lot of us decided not to even put our veteran status on job applications because they would not get hired if they thought they were a Vietnam veteran. We kept our veteran status hidden. We didn't tell anybody. We didn't dress up in these hats because we were ashamed. Along comes this program called Honor Flight. A chance for us to go to Washington, D.C. with other veterans to go see those memorials and those monuments built in our honor. A lot of us were hesitant about doing that. A lot of us were saying, save it for the guys that were in combat. Save it for the real heroes. We don't want to go. But slowly, we started getting everybody back on that. So we tried that. Even though we were living with a lot of bitterness and anger about the country and we weren't sure what was going to happen, once we got on that airplane and we're commiserating with our fellow veterans, our generation, we started to feel a little bit more at ease. We landed, and this is just one of 1,000 stories. We landed in Baltimore. We got off that plane. That airport terminal became silent. As we walked through there, there's people on either side applauding us, thanking us, patting us on the back. Welcome home. Thank you for your service. We're shocked. We never expected anything like this. It's been 50 years since we've been unappreciated, and now we're going through this terminal and they're doing that for us? That's incredible. We get over to the Iwo Jima Memorial, the U.S. Marine Memorial there. There's a field trip, about 200 or 300 school students from middle school and high school. They saw us coming and they applauded us. They split their path and they all said thank you. They all said welcome home. Some of us, one of them came up to me and hugged me and said, "You remind me of my grandfather." You talk about an emotion going through your head after the way we've all been treated. It was absolutely incredible. Now those memorials and those monuments are all fantastic, but to live through that, those accolades that these people gave us, to live through being treated like royalty was absolutely incredible for all of us. I have yet to run into a veteran who did not shed tears at least one time on that flight. So we get to the Vietnam Wall, where a lot of us have a very strong feelings about that. I got up to the wall and I knew exactly where I was going to go. Panel 29 East, line 18. I had my Marine Corps buddy on one side, Air Force buddy on the other, the rest of my honor flight crew behind me. I'm carrying the wreath, and I walk over to that panel, I set the wreath down, and I look up. Right there, I can finally touch my brother's name, my brother that was killed in Vietnam. I cannot tell you the feeling of relief that I got once I touched that wall. All of that anger, all of that bitterness, all of that hatred, all of that disgust that I had for this country made me change my mind. I was now proud to be called a veteran. I finally made peace with this country. I finally made peace with myself, and I finally made peace with God. Thank you. If you have any questions about honor flight, let me know. I'm right here. Let me take a quick break, and we'll continue with the gallery. Thank you.
Armando, whoops, am I in both?
What mic is she on?
Okay, Armando, you talk about, nope, I'm not on mic.
Yes, you are. Talk into it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Armando, you talk about the $50,000 donation that you guys were able to get.
Yes.
But tonight at lunch, you were also talking about what the high schools are doing. Can you share a little bit about that for those of us that are fresh out of 50,000?
Thank you. See, this is why I have her here, because I was going to talk about it and it slipped my mind. You're Mrs. Prevagen now. They're in Bakersfield, and we're hoping to do it at other schools. We have what's called the Kern County Honor Flight Clubs at the high school level. So this is just regular students who want to help donate. But one of the reasons we have them is to encourage some of their family members, or if they know high school alumni from that particular school, if they know that they're a veteran, let's see if we can't get them let's see if we can't get you guys to raise enough money to take that specific veteran onto Honor Flight. East Bakersfield High School last year, they raised $3,000. This is with food sales, doing car washes, penny drives, and all of that. They sent 2 of their East High School alumni to Honor Flight. And they had a special Veterans Appreciation Day during baseball season. And we brought out the 2 veterans that they paid for, and the kids just loved it. They saw where their money was going to.
And the Guardians, they're getting paid real well for this?
Guardians don't get paid. Oh, sorry. It's hard for me to stand still. I'm a walker. I'm like a preacher. I want to go out and put my hands on you. No, the Guardians have to pay their own way. It's $1,500. And it's well worth it. What you're going to do is you're going to be responsible for that particular veteran or 2 veterans. If they're having issues with mobility, we're going to give you a transport chair and you're going to just wheel them around. If not, if you get 2 or 3 healthy veterans, you just got to keep them herded like a couple of cats. This is like a field trip sometimes with some of these more healthier veterans that will start wandering. I want to go over here. Oh, cotton candy over here. No, get it back in line. So, no, the Guardian pays their own ways. $1,500. And that includes transportation, the flight, accommodations. We don't stay at a cheap place. We stayed at the Sheraton Pentagon this last trip. All your meals are included, including a wonderful dinner on the second evening we're there. That's hosted by numerous people, and we've got guest speakers and giving out presentations to the veterans.
And Armando?
Yes?
We all know that somebody's spouse loves them dearly and would love to go most of all.
Yeah.
Then what?
Sadly, wives are not allowed on the flight. And there's a reason for that. This honor flight is made for the veteran. We want the veteran to get 100% give 100% of his attention to those memorials, to the monument. If I take my wife, I'm going to be too concerned that she doesn't trip, that I'm going to hang on to her. I'm going to make sure that she's all right. Can you see that okay, honey? Can you do this? Oh, we want the veteran to focus on themselves, on their fellow veterans, and what they're saying. And yes, we have to leave the wives alone, and I know that's a difficult decision. You want me to tell them what I told you?
No.
Okay. Oh, come on.
Go ahead.
And what I tell some of the wives and veterans is, I've been married 4 times. I don't want any of my wives going with me. And it's difficult. And I've tried, I had one wife who was the caregiver to that particular individual. Had to almost feed him and dress him, but he had a ton of medications, nebulizers, quick IV type stuff. No, we could not take him, but what we did was we got a paramedic who was his guardian, who was able to take care of all of his medical issues right there on that flight. So we will accommodate you.
My wife is a veteran.
Who said that? That's on a, sorry, that's on a, I wanted to put my hands on him.
Give me that mic.
Which one?
That's on a case-by-case basis. They might I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no. Put your applications in and see what happens. That's all I can tell you. Keep your fingers crossed.
She's still a veteran.
Yes.
And are you a veteran? Both?
Yes, both are veterans. When did you serve, sir? What years?
74 to 80.
Okay, Vietnam. And when did you serve?
2004.
Okay.
She's not a Vietnam.
No, but This is the other thing they're doing in Washington, D.C. They're putting up a memorial for Desert Storm, for Desert Storm and the war on terrorism. I keep saying they're going to be done next year. It's like the high-speed rail. When they get done with that, then we'll start taking that era veterans. What you should do right now, though, is put your applications in, put your application in, and you'll be at the top of the queue, so when the time comes, you'll be ready to at least be kind of first on the list. Anything else? Gallery. We're going to watch a quick YouTube video of the Portrait of a Warrior Gallery.
Portrait of a Warrior Gallery is celebrating their 7th anniversary, honoring the memory of our fallen heroes.
We always remember to never forget. A place that we honor our Gold Star families and our veterans who paid the ultimate price.
Jeff Salters, president of the board directors, says the goal of the gallery is to create a space for healing. It's where people can understand what war is about, all while honoring those who served our country. The gallery opened back in 2018 and since then has expanded.
You got the Vietnam Memorial Room, you got the Vietnam Memorabilia Room, and the new recently opened MIA Remember Room with all the dog tags.
But as they celebrate their anniversary, they remember the 27 fallen heroes from Kern County that served in war post 9/11.
David Scott Perry. Staff Sergeant David Scott Perry.
People gathered in front of the gallery to ring the freedom bell, reading all 27 names of the soldiers who were killed in combat serving their country. For them, 9/11 was the reason they joined the military.
These guys, they knew what happened, and they signed their name to the bottom line and said, I'll go. And for these 27, they never came home.
Salters recalls 9/11, describing it as a crazy day.
I was getting ready for work, and I saw turned the TV on, and I saw that it was an attack.
Rick Knight, a Vietnam veteran, says he was at work when he found out about 9/11, not understanding the severity of it until the second plane hit.
The plane hit the second tower live, and it got my heart.
Knight says it's important to remember the bravery that first responders showed that day.
While others were running out, our civil servants, our wonderful firemen and EMTs and policemen were running into the fray.
Staff and veterans hope that people will visit the gallery to learn more about history and honor the soldiers who fought for our country. Reporting from Bakersfield, Maria Celeste Alfaro, Eyewitness News.
And if you guys want a special tour, work it out with Gretchen. We'll get you over there and I'll give you a special tour. And one of the things I start out with, who's my history majors here? Do you know who Marcus Cericio is? He was a Roman senator, philosopher, and he wrote several thousand years ago, "Poor is the nation that has no heroes, but poorer still is the nation that has heroes and fails to remember and honor them." That's what we do at the gallery. They were started 7 years ago by a gentleman in Baytown, Texas. He started the first gallery of Texans who were killed post 9/11. We got wind of that and we said we could do that here in Kern County. So we found a spot right there at 1925 I Street, downtown Bakersfield. We were just going to do half of this building when the landlord came in and saw what we were doing, honoring our military, and he says, you know what? I'm going to give you the other half of the building for free. So that's how we've been able to expand. We have 3 local artists. Nellie Scarborough, who did Pratty's portrait here. Zach Thompson, who's done 4 others. And Vanderpool, who's done the picture portrait in pencil that you see over there. These are the people that we honor. The 27 post 9/11, they're in the big ones. So we have a room dedicated to the Vietnam that were killed from Kern County. And this is my brother's picture, U.S. Marine, September. He's in the company of a lot of heroes there. So that's what we do there. Now we just unveiled, thank you, we just unveiled 82,000 dog tags, and they explained right there, that took us about three or 4 years to do that, to make the dog tags. And when you go in that room, you realize all of those men and women are missing since World War II. They're still missing. What we've also done is, if you listen very carefully in there, there's voices in there. We took some high school kids from our ROTCs and history classes and gave them the names. So what they will say is, "I'm Robert Lingo. Please find me and take me home." You talk about being something eerie. It's incredible to come and visit. I encourage all of you to do that. You have my number, you have my number. If you can't make it in Moss, give them a call. I'll see what I can't do about opening that up. We're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays from 11 to 3. There's always a docent there, and I think most of our docents are all either Vietnam, Desert Storm, and Afghan, Iraq veterans.
And Armando, what time do they ring the Freedom?
At 12 noon. Every day at 12 noon, they'll pull out the Freedom Bell, and they'll ring it 3 times during the day, unless they have a special event going on. Anything else? I'm doing very good. All right.
I would encourage anybody that is going to go up there independently. Don and I, we happen to have just a couple of hours, and I realized we really needed 4 or 5 hours. Armando, you've got your book too.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Are there any questions? We need to, but we would like to have some time, because he has his books and things for sale. But are there any questions from the audience?
Honor flight, gallery, about me, about her.
Okay, then I will say thank you very much.
We're
going to do the book.
About the book.
And, we're going to talk
Yes.
about the book? All right. All right. You talk about the book.
Just, we'll be out of here in time.
fine.
I promise.
We have a great audience who always
Yes.
clean up.
All right, so you know about, sorry. So you know about my brother. He was killed when I was 14 years of age. I knew the where, when, and how, but I didn't know the why. And that's what bothered me for many, many years. So I went about my life going into the military, doing my other careers, and it finally dawned on me, I need to find out why. So I took the time, and trust me, this was before you could light up your Tandy 1000 Ask Jeeves. Nobody's catching that. That was before computers and internet. So you had to go to the library, you had to go to the bookstore, you had to buy VHS tapes, or what was the other ones? Yes, beta tapes. Every newspaper article, every news magazine, and I studied all of that religiously. I was becoming a promoter of the Vietnam War history. And then one day, I was talking to 3 active duty soldiers. We were talking about Vietnam. And they said, "What did the French have to do with Vietnam?" Hallelujah, it hit me. If you know anything about history, that's how we ended up there. Thank you, Charles de Gaulle. So I said, I'm going to do it, and it took me 15 years to write this book. Life got in the way. I wasn't sitting at the desk for 15 years. Life got in the way, but I did as much research as I possibly could. One of the things that I did that I've never seen another book do is, if I mention a battle or an event or a bombing, where Americans are killed. I listed the name, age, and hometown of every serviceman in that. When I finished this book, just before publishing 2 years ago, I didn't realize I had written 970 names. 56 of them are American civilians that were killed in Vietnam. Some were donut dollies from the American Red Cross. Some of them were journalists. Some of them were analysts and secretaries that worked for various agencies. I wrote that like I was talking to my family. I wrote it in what I call a historical narrative. I did not put any of my political spins on it. I just gave you, like Sergeant Friday said, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Okay, some people do remember Sergeant Friday. Whew, good, thank you. I just wanted to put the facts down in chronological order and then let you make the decision on why we got there, why we were there, and why we left. And it shocks everybody when they first read that first paragraph or so. When the Marines landed in Vietnam the first time was in 1845. Yes. Anyway, I described that in my book. I'm going to cheat. Yeah. Going through all of that research, that was the hardest part, was going through all those names and finding all those names. And I made little notes on some of them that I could find. Like, there's a park named in his hometown. She has over 12 pages in the Vietnam Wall of accolades for this one particular nurse there. He has a child that he never saw. He had 12 brothers and sisters. His father was also killed in Vietnam, or his son was. So I've made notes on a good number of people in that. So I encourage you, if you want to know just a little bit more of Vietnam, what we went through and why we went there, I encourage you. I have some here, and they're also available on Amazon. If you get it from Amazon, get a hold of me. I'll come over here and sign it for you. Questions, comments?
Gretchen, before we go, Charlie, could you come up here for just a minute? We have 2 Roseman residents that were killed in the Vietnam War. Yes. And Charlie, I'll let you talk a little bit about that while I've got you here.
There's 3. Johnny Tibbs, Corporal. Let me get my thoughts. Gene Johnson and Clyde Ridgway. And that happened, we learned, at least I learned about it because of the mobile Vietnam Wall that came to Roseman, and during that time, we found out about those 3 veterans from Roseman that are on the wall, and we were able to take some of our veterans. In fact, Jeff Johnson, who's also obviously from Roseman, was on the flight with me and Don, and he went there and was able to, like Armando said, touch his brother's name on the wall. So it was very moving, very powerful, and we're glad to be part of that. We have in our classroom, we have a temporary veterans wall because I'm sure you know there's no Veterans Memorial in Roseman, which I think is a tragic situation that we're trying to do something about. But we have those 3 veterans on the wall, as well as other veterans from Roseman. If you want to put somebody on our wall, we'd be glad to do that. But we're just super happy and proud to be part of the Honor Flight program, and just so thankful that we learned about it, and our cadets love it, and you know, it's a powerful thing. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
And I think you misspelled Gerald Johnson.
Thank you, Gerald Johnson.
Gerald Johnson. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? We would hate for anybody to leave with any money in their pocket. Feel free to donate, buy, whatever.
I'm really glad that he got to talk a little bit more about his book, because obviously this is a labor of love for him to spend the time to do the research, and it keeps the memory of these people alive. So I guess without further ado, Armando, if they want to buy the book, they can.
Or anything else.
But we need to say thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Half the money goes back to Honor Flight, the other half goes into my gas tank on the sale of the books. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I hope we see some of you next time.
Is that okay?